Yeah, so I was driving. I went from Byron down to Sydney, and on the way I was like, I have to pull into the Central Coast and meet this guy. There's something there. It was a full gut feeling. My girlfriend at the time, who was with me on the trip, she was like, "What's the goal with this guy? Like, why are you so interested in wanting to meet him?" I was like, "He's not making music, and I just don't understand why."
The lyric would come naturally and I'd be like, whoa, and then I'd read what I just wrote down that I just sang from my subconscious, and I'd read it and I'd be like, holy shit, like this is legit how I felt about, you know, whatever it was bringing forth for me.
Because, yeah, we were strangers a few years ago, moved in with each other as strangers still, and threw ourselves into this scenario, and it's been like just trying to understand who the hell each other are.
That's me.
You've got a good level. My level, that's good. So that's from the top. So that's coming in nicely. Me? And
that's the best we've seen you then.
Me.
I think it is from the top.
Me, and then I'll go down here to the side.
Okay, that looks better.
Yeah.
We can always dial it up. Post.
We love dialing it up in post.
We're post guys.
Yeah.
New teeth exemplified that very well. Loves it. All right, all systems go.
Okay.
Cool. Coming to you now in a global network outage I saw on my phone as I walked into the building.
Yes.
All this shit going on. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we can probably blame Cam for it, I think. He forgot about the interview, and there was a massive network outage. I don't think there's a coincidence that that's how it's occurred. But nonetheless, we are here at Sonora Studios in the company of Characters, Central Coast band, or I don't know if that's maybe the correct way, because Al, you're transient in a way.
Yeah.
Ben and Al are with us right now from Characters, at least one half of the band from the Central Coast, and a lot of the music is made in the area. So welcome to Homebrewed, guys. It's great to have you.
Wow, thanks for having us.
It's good to be here. Yeah, it's sort of hard to know how to answer that question because you are moving around a lot. I might even be moving to Newcastle. So, you know, how do you say where you're from as a duo?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily from the Central Coast, but this project was born in the Central Coast.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is the beginning of it. This is home, but yeah, we're from different ends of the town. I'm up from Byron Bay area, and did music up there, but have come to work with Ben, and that's unfolded into a series of events that has brought us here today to speak with you, babe.
Amidst a global network outage. My God, no, but it is, I mean, we latch onto the location thing because we're all about Central Coast music, but I know it can be very difficult to define.
Yeah.
But yeah, the music comes from the Central Coast, and I think I stumbled upon you guys. I was trying to remember whether it was the start of this year or the end of last, but it's not really relevant. I found Afterthought. I think Ben and I spoke previously on the phone, and I said it was like a Spotify rabbit hole thing, which like isn't even a thing that I normally do, but I was just on my laptop going, bam, what's this artist? And then found my way to Characters, loved what I heard, and then to boot, you were from the area. And I'm like, this is awesome. It's so awesome.
It's cool that it's like suggesting, or you're putting in front of you some correlated music to the region.
Yeah,
it's
the algorithm.
baked into the algorithm, that stuff.
Yeah, algorithm serving us.
So when you found us, had we already had 3 songs out? Like, did we have New Teeth out? Or?
No, you just had Afterthought. I think you just released Afterthought, so that might be a close bet as to when it was that I found you.
Well, that was the first day of spring last year.
First day of spring.
I know, that's coming up again. So I think we have to
got an anniversary coming up.
Yeah, but I was hooked from that point, and High Love came out. Would have been the start of this year, I believe, because I know where I was when I was like, oh, new stuff from Characters.
I think it was a few weeks before Christmas.
Okay,
when
there you
people
go.
were like, don't release a song before Christmas, and we're like, stuff what people say.
We're like, no,
let's release it next weekend.
It
was an interesting story because we had like come into this thinking, oh yeah, so you know we're gonna like release a song by like one song after each other, and then we thought we'd like give each song this sort of like 8-week lead in time and try and do some promo around it and do all those sorts of things. And then we just felt like we were bound to this time for some reason, like 8 weeks, got to give notice, got to get all your PR and your promo and stuff in order. And we were sort of like, I don't know. I don't like being bound to this 8-week thing. Like, I like just being able to go, how about we release this song next weekend and just put it out? And so that's kind of what we've been doing at the moment. And I think we'll just keep doing that. But we are working our way towards an album. So
epic. That's great. And we will touch on that. I think it's interesting that, I mean, you have to, right? But the 8 weeks is arbitrary. Everything is arbitrary, but you have to now. You have to have that business side, that PR side of you, because everyone is operating their own PR agencies via their socials. But from having met you guys now, and it's only been about 15 minutes, you don't necessarily strike me as the type to do the regimented, scheduled approach, because it's not very artistic, is it?
Sometimes rules and art are two different kind of ball games. And
we wrestle with it.
We do. We're very challenged by kind of what's required at times for a modern artist to be able to kind of engage people with their work. So it's been a journey and been it's been a journey how to navigate that, because we went into it with, you know, thinking I was going to go this way. And then as the journey's been going on, it's like it's just been evolving and learning so much about ourselves and the industry. And we think there is a way to be able to navigate this moving forward. Don't know the particulars of it all, but to be able to kind of crack that code that is out there in a new and unique way. I think the industry is shifting, and it will be more favourable to those artists that aren't necessarily wanting to go down that full business route with their music.
Interesting. So where did you think it was going to go initially? You mentioned that it started one way, or with your expectation being one way, and then it's transitioned over time. So talk to us from where you thought things might go, or how you expected it to play out.
So you mentioned High Love before, because that was actually kind of like the first song I ever made on like with electronic music. So I was sort of doing folk music before that. And I was kind of bound to the acoustic guitar, which was my instrument. Guitar was my instrument, but I had felt drawn to electronic music, and I just had a feeling that if I was to just go and buy Pro Tools and a preamp and a mic and all this stuff and just like a MIDI keyboard and just get some software instruments, I just felt like I could just do it. And so I did that, and then I made High Love, or at least a demo of that. And it was during like a time, and this was like almost 10 years ago. I started like making these songs, and I did it for like a period of like, I don't know, 6 or 9 months. And then I got distracted with life, and I think I always kept trying to come back to it and kept saying, yeah, I'm going to finish them. Yeah, I'm going to finish them. And really it was like my friends around me that sort of got around the music and were like, yeah, people from the coast here. And they were like, we think this is great. And I was like, yeah, well, I don't know. You're sort of wrestling with that thing of yourself, like making music as an artist. And so I basically just never got back to it. And I'd pretty much just given up on it. Like I was like, you know what? I've gone down a different path of life. Like I've got a house, I'm trying to renovate it. Now I need a job to pay for my house. Like this whole sort of Australian dream thing. And then lo and behold, my best friend is up in Byron.
I might take over.
You take over here. Yeah, good. Because this is his bit. This is his bit.
Yeah, so that's right up.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I was mentioning that I was living up in Byron Bay, and I had a music studio up there, and I was constantly inviting new talent and people I was meeting that were music related to the studio, just to create without expectations, see what happens. And I had a friend come through, and he brought a friend with him, and that friend happened to be Ben's best mate, who's just touching on. And we were sharing music, and he's like, wow, your music and my best mate, that would be like a really good mix. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, like interested, but you know. But then he pulled out this demo, and it had these 3 songs on it. It was a 3-minute demo with a 1 minute of each song. And he plays that demo, and I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I was like, "You're not wrong. This is a really exciting sound," and it felt like that's what I wanted to work on. That's the sound. This is it for me. And his best mate, Hoppy. Shout out to Hoppy. If you're out there,
Hoppy.
We wouldn't have characters without Hoppy. And he's like, yeah, he's not even doing music. And I said, why? He's not doing music? And he's like, and he doesn't believe in himself. And I was like, are you, what? This guy's talented, obviously. And then, they kind of left. We had an awesome night and whatnot. And it just didn't escape my mind. It just stayed there. And I was like, I've got to find out who this guy is. So I hit him up.
So I'll take over from here then.
We'll transition.
We'll take turns.
This is great tag team storytelling.
We're team players.
And so I'm like trying to renovate my house, and I'm like wearing a tool belt, looking like an idiot because I'm not a builder. My dad's a builder and my brother's a builder, but I'm not a builder. So I don't know, chip on my shoulder or something. But anyway, I'm there having some beers with Hoppy, and then he goes, "Oi, Al's in town. How about they pop in and you meet him?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, all right." I was sort of like in the middle of like doing stuff, you know what I mean? I didn't know this guy, didn't know why, like, why do I meet this guy?
We just like touched base.
Yeah.
Briefly through Instagram. We connected through Instagram, and I kind of just like introduced myself and said, hey, like I'm doing music and whatnot, and your friend came through and shared some music, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story and what's going on.
And I wasn't sure because I was like in the middle of heading down a different path. Yeah. And so anyway, I was like, yeah, sure, like bring him over. And so we ended up having this night together. Great night. That was a sick night.
Yeah, so I was driving, I went from Byron down to Sydney.
Yeah.
And on the way I was like, I have to pull into the Central Coast and meet this guy. There's something there. It was full gut feeling. My girlfriend at the time who was with me on the trip, she was like, what's the goal with this guy? Like, why are you so interested in wanting to meet him? I was like, he's not making music, and I just don't understand why. And even if like he just starts making music again, that'll be enough for me. You know, even if I'm not involved or whatever. And kind of line it up with Hoppy.
Yeah, and so it's funny to hear that's what's on the other side of the telephone for me. Like, you know, I'm on the other side, sort of like not super interested because I'm sort of like, how am I going to just do music? Like, you know, this doesn't make sense. And so anyway, they come round, we have this night, and I'd fully decided that I was just going to live in my house alone for a while because I had some friends living there, and I was like, going to have a period to myself. And then these guys come and stay for the night, and the next day, I don't even know why, it just popped out. I was like, so do you guys want to move in or what? Like as a joke. And they both just sort of looked at each other and they were like, yeah.
Come on, man, let's go.
Yeah. And it was
like,
just
there's obviously something really cool here. We're all
like,
clicking.
You know when you like say something like that and then you all laugh about it because it's like, you know, you're not serious, but then you're looking at each other going, but are they serious? Like, so it was like one of those moments. And then I was like, well, seriously, if you're keen, let's do it. And then sure enough, I don't know, like a month or so later, 2 months later, something like that.
Yeah, my house got demolished, and I was like, it was an open chapter, and I was like, F it, let's just go for this gut feeling and move down to the Central Coast and see what happens regarding this music.
Very cool to make a move like that on a whim, but it's obviously something. We were speaking to a local artist a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about manifestation and how, and then, you know, we were kind of touching on spirituality in some sense, one way or another, how you perceive it, manifestation being a part of it. And from what I'm getting from you guys is there was something there that was beyond the normal interaction, much in the same way that anyone listening might have experienced with a friend or a partner or whatever else that drew you guys together, and you followed the feeling rather than maybe chalking it up to whatever else was going on in your head.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been following the feeling this whole way through.
Yeah.
And that has been the anchor. That is, that has kept it going. How many years in are we now?
Well, I always feel like it's less than it is.
Yeah, but
It's
it's more.
not. I think it's like, I think we've been hanging out and friends and making music for like at least 4 years now.
Yeah, well,
And we've really only scratched the surface with what we've put out so far. So I think what Al was touching on before with how we sort of went into it with this idea that we were going to make this certain type of sound. And then we started making music, and it took us like a while to figure each other out. Like, I hadn't touched music in years, and I'm like just trying to figure out how to play my Juno again. And like, it was kind of awkward for a while, but then we just, with afterthought, we just had this day on the deck where we were just like,
you know what it was? It was we'd been trying ideas, trying to see like how this is going to work, you know, where each other's roles kind of fit, and the workflow, you could say. And we were kind of pushing shit uphill for a bit there.
yeah.
And like, okay, is this going to work?
Yeah, and I'm like, can I
move down here? Like,
About that feeling.
about that feeling. It's feeling.
I'm like questioning whether I can even whether I can even
Ben's
do this.
challenging whether or not he can even do this.
This
like,
guy's moved
and I've
down
just
to make
moved
music.
in.
The pressure's
I've just
on.
moved in. He hasn't been doing music, and I'm like, let's do music. Let's go. I'm like, I'm on here, mate. You're the guy I've been looking for, and then he's like, you're the guy I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
But what did that mean? So trying all these different things, and eventually it was kind of like, no, okay, let's take this outside. How about we do a different approach to making a song? And I had this loop pedal, and we took out some analog gear, and went onto the deck at our house at the time, which is still there. Still feels like home, but we just plugged in a loop pedal and we just started playing around, real simple ideas. And by the end of the day, we kind of had this little concept of a song. And later in the day, my girlfriend comes home and we're like, oh, this is...
No, she said, what did you guys do today?
What did you guys do?
And we just packed it all up, and I was like, well, should we set it up and actually record it and
I was
show
like,
it?
well, let's do it into Ableton. We use Ableton to write the music and track everything. And we just basically recreated what we were doing on that loop pedal, but in the software, and because we had control over it, it just like ended up growing and growing and growing. And in the whole night, we just... the song just made itself.
It was the bass line with it really kicked it into gear too. It was like when I did that, and I was like, oh, what? And we were like, there's something here. But it was at that point where pretty much that entire song was just done that night. And even I remember it got to a point I was so tired, and I was like, I didn't want to do the chorus because I don't usually do choruses. Choruses is a new thing for me for some reason. Like High Love doesn't have a chorus. Like, and a lot of the other songs that I had sort of written early on that we then ended up working together and turning into What Will Come, they didn't have choruses to start with. It was just this weird thing. And I was super tired, and I stood up and I was like, and I started feeling this moment, and then I was like, oh, I can feel a chorus coming on. That's what I said. and then I just went, I can feel it like a song's been coming on. I can feel your little heart when it's breaking down. I can feel it when it breaks, feel it in the undertone. Yeah, and that was how it came about, and it was like, all right, I'm doing a chorus.
Literally...
Oh, so many of everything that we've worked on is like, there's been, every time we try and plan something, nothing happens.
Yeah, and then if you don't plan it and you just follow the feeling, follow the sound.
As soon as we're surrendering and we're just like, no expectation, we're playing and you're not trying to write a song, songs just happen. And it's like, whoa, where did you come from?
If you're open enough to follow it, because sometimes it's like you're wondering, how is this coming together? Like, oh, this isn't a verse. Oh, this isn't in time. This isn't to grid. Oh, that note's a bit of a bung note. But, like, it doesn't mean it's not a good song. Like, you can find the song in the sounds that start to appear, and if you just keep following them, that's when you land with something super interesting and something sort of daring, you could say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's as much an approach to making music that's also been the genesis of characters as well. It's you two coming together. It's having to develop a unique approach to how you work and create together.
That's right.
That's right.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
And that's the thing is, like, this all sort of just came about, and by not trying to force it to be something in particular, but just letting it be, this is what it became. And it's funny because we laugh about it sometimes, going, just even the fact that it was called Characters, like before we started making all this music that sounds like different characters. Like each song has its own sound and its own type of vocal character too, because that's definitely something I try and channel vocally, is like we'll be making a sound, and if I just tried to approach it with my normal singing voice, which I don't really know what that is, I'll try and match the attitude and the character to the song. So I don't know, but that's just me. I think it would be hard for us to try and just make one sound.
Well, like generally speaking, what the current market or what everyone tells you to do is find your sound, do your thing, and stick to that, and that's what makes you you. And yeah, we would just get bored. We would get so bored doing that and feel pigeonholed creatively. So it's just like we wanted to be able to explore all sound, all genres, and all characters, but we know because we're the ones making the music that in the end it's going to always sound like us because it is us.
And it's not to say anything about like people who make one sound. It's like, it's more to just say that I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
And for us, like, I guess I would say that I don't care whether one person or 1 trillion people hear the song. Like, we've made it because we like it.
Yeah.
And then we share it. And I just think if we just keep doing that forever.
Well, that's been our biggest achievement.
Yeah.
We love the music that we're making. We're our own biggest fans.
Then hopefully we like it that much, and we hope that others will like it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Yeah. And we'll just see what happens. It's a bit of a loose approach.
Yeah, it's good though, right?
But we love what we're making.
And how has that response been? Like, let's talk about the response from Afterthought to now. Like, you had me hooked as one, put it that way. So from that first single, and I've been hanging off like it's a shot in the arm when I see a new character song out. So there's one. But how has the response been, outside of me?
Well, you're the only one that's heard it. That's why we're here.
Maybe though. Maybe more people will have heard Afterthought if you put that little bit of the bass in this podcast.
It'll be in there. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, well, it really is mixed. It's so funny because we're from different places as well, so we share an audience, 2 different audiences, from 2 different journeys as well. And now that it's, we've got a new body of work that we're sharing and releasing to the world, much more intentionally, in a way. And I've been receiving a lot of just like relief. People are like, oh, finally. Finally.
It's close friends.
Yeah.
Just it's had like a really great impact, I think on close friends, because they've always known us, and individual friends too, known us as like able to make this music, but then like there wasn't anything out.
From both of us.
Yeah,
like we're always, so we've always
holding back.
Yeah, music has always been there, but it's like being behind a curtain.
Do you have anything I can listen to? No. Heaps of stuff on my laptop, but
so much. But it's been well received, and every time we like bump into someone and they mention something, it's just like puts a massive smile on our face, and it's like, okay, we're doing something right here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not us that just likes it. Like, we thought it was going to be one way. We thought we were going to be churning out songs every 6 weeks and be doing these heavy content strategies with social media, engage people and, you know, take it to the moon or whatever, you know, the process is these days that, you know, we're aware of, but it hasn't necessarily resonated with us.
Because we could be making music using that time. Yeah. And so that's the thing we wrestle with, because we've got all these songs that we've started that we really, really want to finish, that we think are worth finishing. And so it's like all the time we spend on something that's not that, we feel like it's doing a disservice to those songs. Mm. And so we want to let those things come to life. So working on anything else is sort of like, but then at the same time, it's the very thing that, like, making content and all that sort of stuff that actually can get the song heard. Mm. Yeah. So it's this tug of war.
So part of that journey is like, okay, so how do we want to do this where it feels right? You know, it doesn't feel like we're losing the art. You know, we want to infuse the art into that process of being able to market our music. And that's been the developing story as well. Okay, how do we want to, you know, present this to the world? Because, you know, if everyone's doing that, that's great and that works really well. But that's not us. That's not characters.
So we're going to have to find something that's us. So that's maybe a bit different. I don't know.
FYI, work in progress, whatever that approach is.
We start putting up this content and everyone's like, what is this shit?
For us, we're like, you know, we know that, you know, we really want to continue working with each other. We see this as a really long-term project. We're best mates, you know, so.
We're in it for the long game.
We're in it for the long game. We're like, okay, what's the rush? You know, we don't need to just spit this out. You know, we want to do this with intention. And that's been a huge part of this journey, as I'm kind of touching on. Because, we were strangers a few years ago, moved in with each other as strangers still, and threw ourselves into this scenario. And it's been like just trying to understand who the hell each other are.
And so this
throughout that process as well, and like what each other's needs are is
and this set, like, this was a real shift in course for my life, because as I was sort of saying earlier, I was like, it was funny because I said the other day, that was the day I stopped renovating downstairs, and this was like 4 years ago or something, and that's only about to get finished now. And I'm not doing it, my brother's doing it. But this set a whole nother direction for me, because all of a sudden I was like, all right, well, I'm going to make music now, and I'm going to make music with Al. Like, that's the plan. And as far as I'm concerned, like, we'll hopefully be doing that for a long, long, long time. And so it's just been a chain reaction of changes in my life that have all been positive. And I'm proud to say that I do now believe in myself. I think we both do.
Absolutely.
We believe in ourselves.
Yeah. So what about you two individually, right? Like, Al, you came from different places, but Al, you're in Byron. As you said before, you had a music studio, so you were in and around music. It's not like it was something that you were too detached from. And then Ben, maybe if we start with you, you had the folk history, a point reached where for you creatively, where it was either, I don't know if it was a line in the sand, or it just generally faded away and music wasn't a priority for you anymore. So what happened for your journeys individually, and what was that like for that period there, Ben, specifically, where you're not making music because you're an artist, and it's part of your soul and what you do. So what was it like to resign from that, if that's what you did?
I think for me, like, I hadn't actually made a decision not to do music. I just wasn't doing it. And so it was this situation where I was just, if anything, I was probably a bit disappointed in myself. Like, I'd pretty much stopped playing guitar as well, which was my main instrument. But then it kind of just was like, this guy believes in me. He's willing to come down here and make music and move in. I was like, I'd be crazy not to do that. Like, if I get to like into my hundreds, because I reckon I'll live to 100.
Oh, the way that we're heading, we'll probably get
Live to 1,000.
couple 100 years out of all of us combined.
But I thought if I get into the hundreds and I happen to be on a deathbed and I was thinking back to my life, I was like, I'd be devastated that I didn't ever put out a song, you know? And so, yeah, I think I maybe clung to that a little bit where I was like, I think I have to do this.
You're on that future guilt.
Yeah,
That's what
on that future guilt.
I've done that to myself. Like, what would you think when you double your age about what you're doing now? And as long as I'm happy with it,
yeah.
thinking what I would think, then but it works. It's an effective way because it's offering yourself perspective before you have it.
Massive.
You're holding yourself accountable via your future.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is, my dad did music when he was about my age, and he made records and whatnot. They had a band called the Morlock, and it was from Sydney, and they had a great thing going. They had a producer, and a series of unfortunate events happened and whatnot, and that kind of life path stopped for him, and he moved into art. But there was a record of it, and they had music released, pressed on vinyl, and that was always a really big thing for me because I idolized those records because it's from a different time, from my family, and it's like so cool, like, oh, music from the 60s and whatnot. And I remember
plays through a needle.
Plays through a needle. Like, genius.
I showed some kids that the other day, and they were like, I had their ear up against the record player because it was turned off, and they were like, I can't believe you can hear the music through that disc.
So I'd always been like, I was like, I need to do that. I want to do that. I want to give my son or my daughter a record, and you know, that's a record of that time of my life. And on that night that I met Ben for the first time, you know, there was a moment where we were just kind of having a moment, like scoping each other out.
Who is this guy?
Why is he looking at me like that? I thought he was off me, to be honest. Apparently everyone is.
Okay.
But I was like, you know, telling Ben that story, you know, about the record of my dad, and I was like, you know, there's something here, and you know, at the end of the day, we want something that we can hand on. You know, to at that moment, it was more about family than anything.
Yeah.
And not about, you know, the big light or whatever, and just wanting to hand something down and capture that. And
this is
and
what
I felt really inclined that this was what should be pressed.
I was like, this is what Dad did when he believed in himself.
Yeah.
It's like that type of moment. You know what I mean? It's like,
so we wanted to make a record together from the beginning, from that moment. It's like, let's have something,
let's have something to hand down.
Something to hand down. And that, you know, if we get to that point and whatever, as long as that gets done, that's enough. You know, you can sleep easy knowing you did it. Everything else is a plus from there.
You can hang your hat on the record, but yeah, if you didn't do it, of course, things would feel very different.
Yeah.
So what of that record then? You alluded to it earlier. It's in the works. I gather that there's a lot of music, obviously, behind the scenes that you guys have heard and played and recorded.
Oh, we did a stock take because Al passed through. Al passed through a few weeks back. When you guys messaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Al was here, and he was passing through though, and so we did a stock take on all the music, and I think there's about like 20 songs that we. 15,
plus actually,
probably more than that.
Yeah.
More like a bit over 20 songs that we've found that we've started that are like these ideas. Some of them are like 80% of the way there. Some of them are like 20.
Some are 60. You know.
Yeah, but it's like they're all songs that we were like, these are all worth finishing. Like if we
we would get really excited.
And we're pretty ruthless.
Yeah.
So a lot got the cut obviously in this. Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot and also a not. Like we've been really fortunate. We've had, ever since we got over the line where we figured out how to work with each other, we've actually been really fortunate. We've had a good run. We've made some great ideas that have really excited us. And we're like, oh, okay.
You said it before that we're kind of we like to make music that we like. And so sometimes like we'll be making something and it sounds really good, but there's this thing and it's sort of like neither of us says, yes, that's it. It's like we hang there and it's like, this sounds great. It's like this awkward silence almost. And then we're like, nah. And then you move on and it's like this thing. So I think we're pretty ruthless already when we're making it.
Yeah.
Because it's only if it really feels right. Because you can do something pretty on anything. But is it right? Is it what the song wants?
So it's going to spur that feeling.
Yeah, if we don't get the feeling, it doesn't get saved.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, if it's...
And sometimes that's hard because you're like,
hard.
oh, this is like doing something, but I don't think it's meant for here.
Kill your darlings.
Yeah.
Type situation. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's on, it's on. You know, when we find something, the song makes itself.
Because and this is something we have found through our experience, is that, like what we were saying earlier, that if you're not trying to do something necessarily, you're just letting it happen. We have come to say that we really feel like it's through us, not from us, because it doesn't make sense. Like, so much of the music that we've made hasn't been made with thought. It hasn't been made with like, oh, now I'm going to go to the 4th and then like to the 6th here and the 7th. We don't know all that shit. We just do what we feel. And because of that, it's like, you know, you play a bung note and you're like, oh my God, that is it. That's it. And it's like, what was it? That. And then you play it again and you're like, that on repeat. And then you put it on repeat and you're like, holy shit, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't believe that it's always from us, or at least our best work. I think our best work comes through us, and it feels like we're an antenna.
Supposedly it's a thing. You know, a lot of people that they're like, oh, how'd you do it? I don't know. No idea.
Yeah.
It just happened. Just came.
Don't ask me to do it again.
I can back up.
I'm pretty sure that's something I heard the other day when I was listening to a podcast with Rick Rubin, and I think he was talking about, like, someone said, oh, if I could speak to Paul McCartney, I would ask him, like, how did you guys make Sgt. Pepper's? And Rick Rubin was like, I don't think he knows.
Yeah.
I don't think he can answer that because I don't think he knows. And I'm like, 100%, I bet you that's what, I bet you he doesn't know.
I've actually seen Paul validate that.
Oh, he's actually said like, that. Okay, well, there you go.
We did it.
He goes, I don't know.
Bob Dylan as well. He has no idea how he did his catalogue. He was just like, it was just the right time and something. He was channeling something, whatever that be, his words.
Yeah, well, if you're making music, I'm sure you would subscribe to the idea there's more to it. It wouldn't be so enduring if it was just a thing. You know what I mean? There is something that is implicit in humans and expression that music is a conduit for. So it's beyond something that you just do, and I think that's evidence of that.
Well, as far back as we go in the history of man, like music was before, I think, even dialogue.
Well, babies will identify rhythm and music before they know language. It comes to them first. We spoke about it way back when. Yeah, so babies will be able to dance before they can do anything else that resembles what a human would be able to do. But yeah, every culture, every religion, it's there. So it's coming through. Of the 20 tracks or so that you have, do you have a rough idea of what will make a cut for any potential future album?
Yeah, I reckon a lot of it. But the way we've been approaching it so far is, and this ties into the same theme, whenever we've gone, this weekend we're going to finish Where You Are, or we're going to finish one of these songs, we've set too much of an intention that we go in with this idea that we're going to finish the song, and it doesn't happen, and we get stuck on it, and it doesn't feel easy. And so,
because we're trying to finish a song.
That's right. So, but
first mistake.
It's like, no, but today it was different. Like, I sat down on the deck in the sun, and I could just hear this one song in particular, and I went into Alan. I was like, "Oh, I just got like this feeling about this song," and he was like, "I've been feeling that song all week," and so we've been working on that song all day today, and it's been it's been done with ease.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing, is when it feels easy, it doesn't feel hard, and it feels good because of that. That's when you know that it's right. So that's going to be our approach, is that we've got a list of all the songs, and we just look at that list and go, oh, whichever one we might be feeling, that's what we'll work on. But we do have an idea for which ones will be next. We've got a few that are like 80%, 90%. And we're like, let's get those 80, 90%ers done.
Yeah, because it's so close.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, we're so close. It's an easy win.
We need to keep Josh busy.
Yeah. Our mix engineer.
Shout out
Boy
to
is good.
Josh. Yeah.
Boy is good.
I'm
Yeah.
curious as well about your individual origins and how those two things combine, because we mentioned before, Ben, your background's in folk. And we're not exactly sure of your background, but when Ben and I spoke on the phone previously, he'd said that you come from more a production side of thing, and you can hear those two things meld together really well. New Teeth being the example of it, it's almost spoken word-ish lyrically, and then it hits that point where there's that ambient, beautiful production. I think I described it as a bit raindroppy earlier, whatever that is, but the two of you seem to combine and work together very, very well, despite from what I'm assuming is definitely different backgrounds musically. So how do those two things go together?
It's really grey, to be honest. Like, sometimes we don't know, but Ben is a fantastic musician, and he's like a jack in the box, like
A jukebox.
Pandora's like a radio station. You turn him on and he just goes. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a vocal, instrument, things, and it's chaos. It's chaos. And it's like the producer's dream. It's just like, let him run, and it's like, oh, boom, that's it, that piece there, and he's going off on this other thing. Oh, there's a piece there. And that's, for the most part, that is the process. We're just letting Ben just absolutely run wild, and I'm just piecing together a song in the background, and it just, and then, but the roles are swapping around so much. Like, we share hats and influence each other in conscious and unconscious ways. And but yeah, I look after all the technical side of it and production and making sure that we're recording bloody everything, and just like getting interesting on sound design and whatnot. I'm far from a mix engineer, but we do bake a lot of kind of the feeling of everything, and that comes back to like all the ideas that we're really excited about, because we know that's the sound of it. It doesn't need to go into like a different, depending, you know, who knows, it's all open for interpretation still. But my background, coming back to that question, is so Ben's got a background in folk music. I have a background in doing DJing and whatnot. I come from Bellingen Shire originally, and there wasn't any live music for kind of my age group and community. So they just had these bush stuffs and stuff out there, really famous in that area for them. And I used to go to the bush stuffs and everyone's bloody having a good time, and all the cool guys are the DJs playing the music. It's like, oh, okay. I could do that. I'll give it a crack. So I started giving it a crack, and then was, you know, playing music and whatnot, and started playing at these events, and then started like editing the songs, just dragging in songs into Fruity Loops at the time and chopping it up and rearranging it. And that was my introduction into production from that point. And essentially I was like, oh, I'd love to start writing my own music instead of playing other people's music. And it was all electronic orientated. I can't sing. Ben can. He sings, FYI. Ben does all the singing. And that was kind of my pathway to just writing all like, and then there was no live music, so I kind of essentially wanted to move towns, and I moved to Byron Bay to be influenced by the music up there, to find people to work with, because there was more of a music scene up there, especially live music. And I was really keen on recording stuff because everything was all electronic prior to that. And that's when I established the studio up there and was working with musicians, all the local talent and whatnot. And then that's where it loops back into the story that we were telling earlier, where Ben's best mate comes a few years later.
And the paths cross. It's funny. Another artist we were speaking to a couple of weeks ago, they came together via it was Vampire. It was like an app post-COVID, which is almost like Tinder for musicians.
I've seen that.
What?
And they came together and worked beautifully, and we found it so funny because it was like, you know, it's like Tinder, but it actually they were complete strangers, and then have gone on and made some really good music, and in a different kind of way, you guys were match made. It's like two different ways of dating in terms of how these bands are coming together.
We're in arranged marriage by Hoppy.
Yes, you blind dated us, mate. Yeah. But like coming back to New Teeth, you were curious on the production of that.
Yes.
Like at the time, exploring, like me and Ben are both really drawn to cinema and the music involved in cinema. So I was experimenting with a lot of ambient music at the time, and I just had this little idea that I'd made, which was the real bones of the song, essentially. Doing that, and then kind of these harmonic pads and whatnot. And this was at a special place, my folks' place, in a place called Repton. And place is on a cliff, essentially, and it looks out towards the ocean, and you see 5 headlands down, and it's in the middle of a national park. It's the only house out there. It's
beautiful. It
sounds amazing.
It's insane.
It's just in the middle of a rainforest, Bongal Bongal National Park, and it's just such an inspiring location, and it doesn't call for loud noises. It's just serenity. So really inspired by that location in that particular, and was messing around with ambient music. And Ben had come with this.
We were working on another song that morning, and then he just started playing that thing, and I walked down the hall to take a piss. He's just talked about serenity, and I was like,
the serenity.
yeah. And I'm down there, and I'm in the bathroom, and then I just start going, I don't care if you stop and stare, and I was like, yeah. And then I walked down the hall, and I was like, what's this? And you were like, it's this ambient thing I've been playing with. And I was like, what about like something like, I don't care if you stop and stay, cause you got nowhere and you don't know where to go. Got time if you got time, but you walked out and left me in the cold. But you forgot your coat, got up and made my bed. The TV said your life was dead, and I cried out when I found out you went upstate and found a new boyfriend. But I didn't say it all. But I said like pretty much the first line.
That first line. And then it was like, oh,
that's us.
Okay.
And then,
should we record it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like 3 hours later, all the vocals were recorded.
Yeah.
And then we got down and you had all these atmospheric waves and crashing sort of sounds, as well as this OP1.
Ben's got this OP1, and it does really great FM synthesis, which is kind of a lot of those sounds that I think you're drawn to. Kind of got that psychedelia almost to it, where it's sucking and pulling, and we were just jamming the OP1 and just recording all these different little sounds and whatnot.
And the Micro Freak. It was both
and the
of them
Micro Freak combined. Yeah.
I was playing the OP and you were on the Micro Freak for most of it, and it was perfect because we were just bending these sounds into each other's synth, and it was just wild. So you got brand new teeth. It just happened.
It just happened, and we recorded them into these gaps, got the arrangement. It's so funny, you know, you were like, the anticlimax, that song nearly kept going.
Yeah.
And we were going to like fuck it up, and which is so us normally. We like to get obscure.
But then one night we listened to it.
Yeah.
And we both had our eyes shut, and we had friends over and we'd had quite a few beers. But we had a moment. We had a moment where we both opened our eyes at the end of the song and looked at each other, and we were like, "That's it." And when that was it, we left it as is.
I think it's a welcome anticlimax. I like music that you expect it to do one thing and it does another, and it didn't feel like it was a premature ending. It just wasn't what expected it would do, and I value that. So when it ended in that way, I was like,
yeah,
nice. You got me. It's really, really nice. In terms of the songwriting too. So Ben, you said was that a line that you had in your head, or is that something that just comes to you? And are you the main lyrical, you're the lyric writer?
Yeah, I write all the lyrics and the melodies and stuff. But I very much, like Al was sort of saying, I am a bit like a jukebox, and with some melodies and some stuff, it just all comes and I write it down. I can make my own decisions with myself in my head. It's so weird when you're singing and I'll be like talking to myself and, oh yeah, go down to that bit and then there. Yes, okay. And then it's like, I look like a crazy person. So some songs are like that, but then some songs I definitely need direction, you know what I mean? Because I'll be like, I could go here, or I could go here, or I could go here, or I could go down here. And then he's like, okay, sorry.
It was over there.
It was over there. And it's like, okay. Exactly. And that's really helpful for me, because it's just like having someone constantly steering you in the right direction. And so it's like, that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
It doesn't feel like there's a lot of writing. We're not really writing music.
Well, it is that thing where often we'll just be playing the song on the speakers, the piece that we've made, and we're just like really feeling it,
just jamming it,
like pumped up loud.
Yeah.
And then I will sort of just walk around the house, and actually often a lot of my best melodies and lyrics have come while I've been making dinner.
Yeah.
Because our studio's in the living room.
The whole house, like, space is to be music.
And so we'll be making music, and then it'll start getting towards like 6 or something, and I'll be like, all right, I'm exhausted because I've been like singing and playing instruments and stuff, and he's exhausted because it's just like trying to capture chaos. And then I'll be like, I
don't get a break. I've got like, it's just like, oh man, I needed to piss half an hour ago. I can't.
Wait, where was I?
and then I'll just go into the kitchen and start making dinner, and I'll just be in there singing away, humming away, and then I'll be like running into the lounge room going, what about this? And I'll be like, and I'll just do this like wild vocal like that, and Al will be like, that's it.
Meanwhile, the pot's boiling over.
Yeah, pretty much. The past is overcooked.
and so it often like there's a lot of voice recordings on our phones, because often the song will be playing, record on the phone just so we capture whatever happens in the moment. And so during the moment, I'll sort of just start singing whatever comes. Again, it's not thinking. I'm not thinking about what I want to say, just finding the melody and just starting to say words. And then certain lines come forward and certain lines stick. And the craziest thing I've found about all that, even with New Teeth, like it was a bit of both, like the lyric would come naturally and I'd be like, whoa. And then I'd read what I just wrote down that I just sang from my subconscious, and I'd read it and I'd be like, holy shit, like this is legit how I felt about, whatever it was bringing forth for me. And so it is this weird thing where it comes like from my subconscious, I guess, because that's where a lot of those things are that I might not have at the forefront of my mind. So it comes from the feeling. And so those voice memos are priceless, because often if I get stuck, I'll listen to the voice memo and half the lyrics are in there. You know what I mean? And I'll grab,
if not all of it.
And sometimes it's been like, I've taken them all and just changed a few lines and the whole thing makes sense. And it's like, that's it.
Or all the initial, vomits of an idea or of a melody or lyric. It's always so much truth wrapped up in all of them.
And that's the thing.
And they just lead the way. And it's just like, the subconscious has got so much to say when you're not thinking about it. And it's like, then says it and then he writes it down. It's like, wow, that was profound.
Yeah.
Instead of writing it and then singing it.
It's not me. Yeah. It's through me.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. It's involuntary expression almost.
Yeah. I feel like there's been some times that I've written down a lyric and I've looked it out and I've been like,
cop this.
Look at that. That's gnarly.
We get jacked up sometimes. We're like, whoa, what's going on here?
In terms of how your music would translate live, is it something that you've given thought to?
Oh yeah.
And is there anything on the cards at this stage?
So at the moment, we're really excited to perform. We see a pathway doing that. But at this present, we're so focused on wanting to really give it all in to the music itself first and, wrap up a record essentially. And then that is probably going to be our catalyst point to be able to start translating it into a show. And we've got people in mind for that show who are going to get involved. We see we've got a good bunch of lads around us that are all extremely talented in their own fields. And it would be stupid of us not to be utilizing these people. And we just want them involved because we all respect them so much as well.
So it's a band you have in mind for the show. I'm curious about how those more produced elements would work. Like obviously in terms of members, you're probably going to have a drummer, as is important for so many acts. But then Al, a lot of the more produced sides of it, the sounds that we're hearing and that we've been describing in this conversation, how would they translate live? Would you be on a synth or a pad or keys or something else?
Well, that's all yet to be discovered, but there's definitely a lot of elements that won't be able to be, performed live as well. So I'll be kind of mastering it, kind of orchestrating from like a controller of sorts that's kind of pulling a lot of elements in and out essentially, and kind of, who knows, but we've got visions, but to be able to translate it is another story.
Wait for it to find you.
Yeah.
I think like maybe like when we've done an album, and I think like we've maybe reached a point where we're like, okay, maybe instead of writing and recording for a while, let's pull together a live set, because we really see the live set as this like whole project in itself, not just here's these songs we've made, let's try and play them live. It's here's these songs we've made, let's kind of make a whole new project from those songs and perform that live, which means that maybe some of those songs, only half of it will be played and then it will transition into a different song. So I think there's so many things you could do, and I feel like adding in that sort of, I go to say like a DJ element, but it's not really, but it's more that you're almost remixing all of your own songs and doing them sort of differently, but with all instruments. So it's kind of just versions of the songs that people haven't necessarily heard, but with a lot of the elements that they are familiar with. Almost.
Yeah, we actually do see like, or we've really discussed it,
drawing out
that
we
really intend to reimagine the songs.
Yeah.
So we think that the streaming is one experience, and then the show is like, the songs, but it's like they've evolved, a completely evolution. We're not trying to re-stream them for the public and have it how they know it. We want to completely take it in, because we've changed, like, and people are never the same, and we want to keep it exciting for ourselves throughout that. So, there might be 10 versions of Afterthought by the time our career's done, and it's evolved, the song's evolved and changed and gone in these different directions. There's the live, the electronic, there's an acoustic version or whatever, and we're just working with what we've got and what's interesting us at that time. But so I'm excited about the performing, because like,
same.
But
it'll come at its time.
That's right, and we're just respecting the process. We're not trying to force these things and overload ourselves, overwhelm ourselves, because life is busy business. Trying to keep a project going it's own marathon. And
as you pointed out, it's a pretty complex sound, and when you start to hear some of the newer stuff that we start to put out, I think you'll be like, okay, now I understand what you mean, because it'll be a different experience. And so I think we would have to be in a position to be able to put a really significant amount of time into it to get it to that stage of production that we would be happy with. But then once we do that, we would like to take that and run with it for a while.
Yeah, and I resonate with the idea of songs translating differently live too. Cam and I have spoken about it as well a lot. Whereas if I wanted to hear exactly as it sounds when I stream or play your CD or play your real record, then I would do that. But when I go to your show, I want to see a different part of that. And a lot of the music that I love and my favorite bands will do that, and they'll trail their song off and to an 8-minute version of it that
Exactly.
is unique to that show and that show only. So
You go and see Foals and they milk all the bits that you love and you're just like, that's why I came here. And you just bathe in it and you're like, oh.
I think I've had exactly that experience with Foals before.
Exactly. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so if I can boil it down to next single, do you have that? Do you know what that's going to be, and do you have a rough time frame for when we might be able to wrap our ears around it?
Just around the corner.
Yeah, it is. It's just around the corner.
But yeah, we do know what is up next.
It's called Stop Start.
Yeah, that's the next one in the barrel. So that should be accessible via the public and yourself, fairly soon.
Beautiful.
But we're expecting the mix back even this weekend, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're at that stage. Yeah.
So we're doing it as it's coming. So we did initially kind of build like a bit of a backlog for the first section. The first 3 songs we had all done at the same time, and then we're kind of just going with it from here. And but yeah, we're not being too particular on dates and whatnot. We are just again going with these feelings like, oh, should we release this next week? Like, and everyone says don't do that, but it just feels right for us to do it that way.
Yeah.
And it's given us the kick that we want to get out of it and that excitement of the kind of spontaneity of it all.
Yeah. And in keeping with how character seems to operate from what I've learned from this conversation.
Yeah. Let's just do it our way and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's how.
That's been the guiding light. We're doing this our way.
Yeah.
Well, we've got that to look forward to, and I hope anyone listening, if they haven't listened to characters bar the tidbits that have been dropped in to this podcast, I hope there's enough in there that sparks enough curiosity to go and explore what catalogue is out there now, because it is really, really interesting, unique, great diversity in music, and there's clearly a lot more to come from that project. So we have that to look forward to. One final question. Regarding an album with the character's theme, can we expect every song to have that difference?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very much so. Yeah.
Excellent. So we've got that to look forward to. Timeframes TBD, but what you can expect, it's going to be really good when it comes out. Al, Ben, thank you so much for coming on to Homebrewed and sharing so much about it. I can't wait to hear what's coming up next and where the rest of the journey takes you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having us. Nice to meet you.
This episode of Homebrewed was produced by my good friend Eamonn Snow. It was recorded at Sonora Studios in Tuggerah on Darkingjung country. For more from us, head to www.homebrewed.au. And until next time, bye.